Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're exploring something that, well, it sounds like the ultimate goal for many of us. How to take something you love doing, in your free time, and actually turn it into income.
Hmm.
Our source material for this deep dive is a guide specifically written for English learners, focusing on this very topic.
That's right. So our mission here is sort of twofold. We want to dig into the practical advice from the source on transforming a hobby into a source of money. And as we do that, we'll highlight some valuable English language points along the way, directly from the text.
It really does sound like a dream, doesn't it? Turning passion into profit.
Yeah,
And what's particularly interesting from this source is how it points out that, with the internet today, this isn't just for traditional crafts. It's achievable for even really niche hobbies. Like think about painting miniature figures, as the source mentions, or knitting unique baby clothes. There's a global audience out there now.
exactly. The barrier to connecting with potential customers, no matter how specific your interest is, it's dropped dramatically.
So over the next while, we're going to explore the motivations behind this, look at how people actually do it, bring in some real examples from the source, acknowledge the hurdles, and see what tools are recommended.
Right.
It's a dive into turning creative energy into currency with some English learning sprinkled in.
Think of it as building a small business, maybe while building your English skills at the same time.
Okay, let's get right into it then. Why would someone even consider trying to make money from a hobby? What are the driving forces the source identifies?
Well, the source points to a couple of core reasons. First and foremost, it's about fulfillment.
Fulfillment, right.
Yeah. When you're spending time doing something you genuinely enjoy, something you're passionate about, and then you see someone else valuing it enough to pay for it, well, that brings a unique sense of satisfaction. You're already doing it for the love of it, so adding a financial aspect can feel incredibly rewarding.
That makes perfect sense. It's not just about the money, but the validation, maybe, of your passion.
Right. And of course, there's the practical side. It provides extra income. This is often what people refer to as a side hustle.
Ah, a side hustle. Okay, that's a term you hear a lot these days. What exactly does that mean, in this context?
A side hustle is essentially a secondary job or project, something you do in addition to your main job, specifically to bring in extra money.
Okay.
The source uses a pretty clear example. He started a side hustle making wooden furniture on weekends. So it's income supplementing your primary earnings.
Got it. So it's not necessarily replacing your day job then, at least not right away.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the source is careful to mention that while it often starts as a side hustle, for many people, it does have the potential to grow over time. It could eventually become their main source of income. That's the journey some people take.
That suggests you don't have to, go all in from day one, which is reassuring.
Absolutely not. The source strongly advises against diving in headfirst. It recommends starting in a limited way first, just to see if it's viable, and, frankly, if you even enjoy the business side of it. This approach is often described using the phrase, test the waters.
Test the waters. That's a great idiom. Makes it sound much less risky.
It is less risky. You're just trying it out, dipping your toe in, so to speak. The example given is helpful. She tested the waters by selling her cookies at the local market.
Right.
You're trying out the process, seeing the reaction, getting a feel for it without committing everything.
Okay, let's make this a bit more concrete with some stories from the source. Who are some individuals who successfully navigated this bluff?
Well, one example they give is a woman who loved baking cakes. She started, as many do, just baking for friends and family, for fun.
A common beginning for many hobby businesses, I'd imagine.
Exactly. But soon, friends of friends started asking her to bake cakes for special occasions, birthdays, weddings. The demand just sort of grew organically. She wisely started an Instagram account to showcase her designs, her beautiful work, and the source notes that within about a year, she was getting weekly orders.
Weekly orders. Wow. Just from what started as baking for fun, that's quite a leap.
It really is.
And speaking of her journey, the source highlights a useful grammar point related to describing that kind of change.
Yes, the structure used to plus verb. We use it to talk about past habits or states that are, well, no longer true today.
Okay.
The cake baker's story illustrates it perfectly. She used to bake only for her family, but now she runs a small bakery. It clearly shows that transition from her past activity to her current business.
That's a very practical structure, yeah, for telling stories about change. What other examples does the source provide?
There's also the case of someone who enjoyed painting fantasy characters.
Yeah.
He used to paint them simply for his own enjoyment, maybe share them online casually.
Right.
Now he sells his artwork online, and a significant part of his income comes from getting commissions.
Commissions. Okay, could you explain what a commission is, especially in the world of art and creative work?
Certainly. As a noun here, a commission is basically a request for a custom piece of work. Someone hires the artist to create something specific just for them. Often, a portion of the payment is made in advance, too. The example given is, she got a commission to paint a portrait for someone's anniversary. It's tailored work, bespoke.
So it's not just selling prints or, existing pieces, but creating something unique based on what a client asks for. That seems like it would allow the creator to charge more.
It typically does, yes. Custom work usually have a higher perceived value because it's unique and made specifically for that person. It also helps build a really strong connection with clients, which can lead to repeat business or, word-of-mouth referrals.
Okay, that gives us a good picture of why people do this and shows it's possible with those examples.
Yeah.
Now, if someone listening right now is thinking, all right, how do I actually begin with my hobby? What's the very first piece of advice from the source?
Well, the source is quite realistic here. The absolute first step is to identify the hobby or skill you genuinely enjoy, but, and this is important, also one that you would enjoy doing more often, even when there's pressure or a deadline involved. The source acknowledges that once money gets involved, the hobby aspect can start to feel a bit like work.
That's an important distinction to make up front. The passion has to be strong enough to handle the business side.
Exactly. So once you've identified that, the second piece of advice is crucial. Start small.
Start small.
Yeah. Don't aim to launch a massive online store or quit your job immediately. Maybe offer your product or service to just a few friends, or list it on a small online platform. Perhaps try a local craft fair. The key goal at this stage is to get feedback.
Getting feedback. Okay, what does that process involve? What does it mean?
To get feedback means you're actively seeking opinions, suggestions, maybe constructive criticism about what you're offering. It helps you understand what customers like, what needs improvement, maybe if your pricing feels right.
Right.
The example is pretty clear. I got great feedback from my first photography clients. It's all about learning and refining your offering before you think about scaling up.
That makes sense. It's like doing market research, but on a very small, manageable scale. Now, pricing. Pricing can be really tricky for beginners. What does the source say about figuring that out?
It advises doing your research. Look around, see what others in your niche are charging for similar quality and type of work. But it adds a very important caution. Do not undersell yourself.
Don't undersell. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
To undersell something, as a verb, just means to price it too low. The source specifically warns that many beginners undersell their products because they lack confidence.
Oh.
You need to remember the value of your time, your unique skill, and the quality you're providing. Pricing too low can actually signal lower quality to customers sometimes, and it just makes it unsustainable for you in the long run.
That's a really crucial point, recognizing your own value. Okay, so we've talked about starting, but what about the difficulties, the challenges? What common obstacles does the source mention someone might face?
Well, one of the most significant challenges is simply time. Most people attempting this already have jobs, maybe family commitments, social lives.
Yeah.
Adding a side business on top of all that can quickly start to feel overwhelming.
Overwhelming. That's a feeling I think pretty much everyone can relate to at some point.
It is. Something is overwhelming when it feels like too much to handle, or it's just emotionally intense because of the sheer volume or complexity. The example fits perfectly. Balancing work, kids, and a side business can be overwhelming. Managing your time and energy becomes absolutely critical.
And there's also the risk, like you mentioned earlier, that the hobby itself might become less enjoyable once it becomes work.
Absolutely. That's another major challenge. The potential for the hobby to stop being fun, or even worse, leading to burnout.
Burnout. Yeah, that sounds serious.
It is serious. Burnout is a state of extreme exhaustion, typically resulting from prolonged stress or overwork.
Yeah.
The source gives a stark example. He experienced burnout after working 80-hour weeks. To avoid this, the source suggests strategies like, well, taking planned breaks, being realistic about deadlines and what you can actually produce, basically, don't overpromise, and setting really clear boundaries between your hobby business time and your personal time.
So managing expectations and protecting your personal space are absolutely key.
Exactly right.
Fortunately, the source also highlights that we live in a time where there are more tools and platforms available than ever before to help with this kind of thing. What does it recommend?
Well, the range of tools is vast, And it really depends on what you're offering. For selling physical products, well-known options like Etsy and eBay are mentioned, but also the possibility of setting up your own personal website.
Right. And for digital creations or services like freelance work.
For digital work, platforms like Fiverr and Upwork, where you can offer freelance services, or maybe Gumroad for selling digital products directly, those are highlighted. If teaching your skill is the goal, platforms like YouTube, Skillshare, or even just using simple video conferencing tools like Zoom for live classes are all options.
It really does seem like there's a dedicated online space for almost any type of offering these days.
There really is. The term platform here just refers to that digital space or service where you can offer your goods or services to customers.
Yeah.
The example is straightforward. She launched her jewelry brand on an e-commerce platform.
And you still need ways to handle the money side, obviously.
Right. Oh, of course. Essential tools include payment systems like PayPal or Stripe to receive payments securely online. The source also mentions tools like Canva, which can help with designing marketing materials or product mock-ups, even if you're not, a professional designer.
So with these tools and platforms readily available, it really is more feasible than ever to start something small, maybe right from your home office or kitchen table.
Absolutely. The infrastructure is largely in place for you.
Okay, as we start to wrap up this deep dive, let's quickly touch again on some of the useful English points we've encountered. These came directly from the source material about this topic.
Right. So we saw the phrase side hustle for that secondary income project and the idiom test the waters for trying something new on a small scale first. We defined commission as that request for custom work and talked about the importance of getting feedback to improve what you're doing.
We also covered undersell, which is pricing your work too low and that feeling of being overwhelming when you just have too much on your plate.
And the term burnout, that really serious exhaustion from overwork. And finally, platform, referring to the digital marketplaces or spaces where you might do business online.
Those are all terms that are incredibly useful to understand in the context of this topic and actually more broadly in business too.
Definitely. And we touched briefly on some grammar that helps tell the story of change or maybe give advice, like using used to for past habits, or modals like should or could when you're talking about suggestions.
All very practical language tools for learners.
Indeed.
So for our final thought today, what does the source suggest for someone who is listening, maybe feeling a bit hesitant about starting this journey?
The core message is really powerful in its simplicity. If you're unsure, just take one single step. That's it.
Just one step.
Start now, but start small. You don't need a detailed 5-year plan or a huge investment right away. Maybe sell just one product, teach one person, create one post about your hobby online. Learn as you go.
That takes away a lot of the pressure, doesn't it? Just focus on that very first, small, achievable step.
Exactly. And for you, the listener, particularly as you're working on your English, the same principle applies. Keep listening, keep practicing, keep exposing yourself to real English in contexts like this one. Taking those small, consistent steps will build your confidence and fluency over time.
It's that consistent, manageable effort that really makes the difference in both areas, it seems.
It absolutely is. And here's something maybe to think about as you reflect on this deep dive. Maybe your current hobby, or even a new one you pick up, is improving your English. And who knows, perhaps someday you could even turn that skill into income, helping others learn English.
Now that's a provocative thought. Turning your English learning journey itself into a future side hustle. The possibilities really do seem endless.
They are, if you're willing to just take that first step.